What's going on? It's Ethan with Rewind Sports, and I thought I'd sit down here to talk about a game that I watched the other night and all the storylines that came out of it, and maybe make a YouTube video for the first time in forever. I don't think I've made a YouTube video that was a non-podcast video since the NBA playoffs of last season. So we're here, and it is currently 1:26 a.m. In the morning on a Sunday morning, and this game happened on Friday night. I would have done this on Saturday, sometime during Saturday, or even Sunday night, but I totally didn't even think about it. And I was sitting down on my couch about an hour ago, and I was like, something that I haven't done in a long time is make a YouTube video. And I was like, I'm constantly on the grind, three-wind grind at all times, and I was like, I ain't got nothing else better to do. I'm not tired. I took me a good nap today. Um, and there's no need for me to sleep on a normal sleeping schedule. It's just not my style. I'm the kind of guy that likes to be feel awful during the day because of my sleeping schedule. And so it's 1:26 in the morning, and I thought I'd throw this together and talk about some stuff I wanted to talk about. Of course, we are talking about the Gonzaga Duke game. I don't think I've ever talked about college basketball on a non-podcast video on here, but I'm excited to do so. If you didn't already know, and if you haven't watched the podcast where you can see the entire wall of stuff behind me, whereas right now you can only see on 10%. Um, I'm a big Kentucky fan, Kentucky basketball fan, and as you know, we are the greatest college basketball program ever. Which means I keep up with my fair share of college basketball. I know I'm a big NBA guy too, and I watch my fair share of other sports, but what it really comes down to is my heart and soul lies in college basketball. And so today I'm going to be talking about some college basketball. Now, it doesn't involve Kentucky, but it kind of does, and I think when you look at the storylines, you can kind of make the argument that it involves Kentucky. And I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to make a YouTube video. So before I really get into things, make sure you like the video and subscribe if you aren't already or haven't already. And check out the podcast, which is what we do every week, and there will be one out tomorrow. Um, let's get into it. Gonzaga went into this game ranked number one in the country, and Duke went in ranked number five. Gonzaga's been number one all year long. Duke started off number nine, I believe, and has worked their way up. They really before this game, Gonzaga's definitely had the harder schedule. They played Texas, who was a top five team when they played them. I think they were five, and they played UCLA, who was number two, whereas Duke has only played one top 10 opponent in Kentucky, who's currently top 10, and they beat Kentucky by 8 points, 79-71, I believe, whereas Gonzaga beat the brakes off of UCLA by probably I think it was 20 points, something like that, and I think they beat Texas by 10 or so. And so Gonzaga's definitely shown already this season that they're capable of beating those high level teams. Whereas Duke, not so, I mean, I would say not so much, but you don't really know because they did beat a top 10 team, and in actuality, I bet Kentucky is probably higher than a top 10 team. We really don't know right now because they've been playing cupcakes all year. And that was kind of Duke's question too, because they came into this game after five straight wins against cupcake teams. And you were like, have they really played anyone recently that is going to prepare them for this game? And I think they came out there and they answered that question really quick. Duke looked really good in this game. If you haven't watched it already, I don't know if spoilers for sporting events really matter. But Duke won this game 84-81 in the end. But it was really a very, very much a roller coaster because in the first half it was all Duke, and the game was still close. But like everyone knew that the first half was all Duke. Of course, Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme, the two main guys on Gonzaga, really didn't do much at all in the first half, especially Holmgren, who was out for like the last 10 minutes with two fouls. He had 4 points, I think, in the first half. Um, Whereas Paulo Banchero of Duke exploded in the first half, had 20 points, looked really, really, really good. But near the end of the first half, or maybe it was at the very beginning of the second half, started to struggle with cramps, um, which is something he has struggled with already this season when he played Kentucky earlier this year. So you can tell it's 1:20. You can tell it's 1:30 in the morning because I'm yawning. But earlier this year when Duke played Kentucky, Ben Caro was out with some cramp issues, and in this game he was out for about 10 minutes in the second half with cramp issues. So that may be an ongoing problem that he has all year that we need to look out for, because in the second half he was a non-factor. He had 1 point in the second half, and you would have to assume that would be because of the cramps. A guy that has 20 points in the first half and looks like the best player in the NCAA has 1 point in the second half. It's probably not due to normal circumstances. So yeah, I would say it was probably due to his cramping. Um, Whereas it kind of flipped the script in the second half. Whereas in the first half, Duke looked really, really good. Duke, I think, went up only by three at halftime, but they really were looking more like the more dominant squad. Going into the game, I didn't think Duke had much of a chance, just considering what their schedule had looked like so far, whereas Gonzaga had beaten several top teams already. But they proved me wrong in that first half where they were up by three. Bancaro looked really good, and Gonzaga's guys, other than Julian Strother, who isn't a guy they really have to rely on that often. Other than him, Gonzaga did not look great, and they were, I guess for Duke, they were up, but for Gonzaga, they were only down three with their two best players playing bad. And I noticed that going into halftime, I was like, for Gonzaga, that's not bad at all. If you're down three when your two best players are playing like how they are, and one of them hasn't even touched the floor in 10 minutes, you may be all right. And I think that was true to an extent, because in the second half, Gonzaga looked like the better team for the most part, up until the end where they started to struggle. But for a while there, Gonzaga looked really good, and they took the lead for the first time for a considerable amount of time. They were never up by a lot. I think at the most 4 points, maybe six, but I doubt it. Um, of course, Timmy finished with 17 points. Holmgren finished with 16. Holmgren looked pretty good in the second half. He was kind of getting beat up in the post, and which is sort of expected, sort of not. He's a very skinny, lanky guy, and he's meant to be a help defender, of course, because of his wingspan. He's great at getting blocks, but when he goes up against a strong player, and Duke has a pretty strong front court, he was kind of getting beat up. And even when he was getting matched up against Bancaro, who isn't as big as front court guys, he was still kind of getting beat up because of his strength. Holmgren's just not all that strong. He's a great prospect, but he's really not that strong. So he's easy to. It's easy for me to say he's easy to plan against, but as far as attacking him, he is easy to plan against because he's very weak compared to these big power forwards and centers. He's 7'1", very lanky, but he's going up against these guys who are 7 foot and muscular and built, and he struggled to defend those guys in the paint. That's why a guy like Mark Williams on Duke, who hasn't done a lot, absolutely dominated in this game. Had a poster dunk on Holmgren, looked really, really good all game. Was an absolute X factor for the Blue Devils. The storylines that come out of this is a couple. So you have who's the best team in college basketball, and of course there's several you could throw in there, obviously. But let's just, for the sake of this video, keep it down to these two. And you know what? I'm not sure, because on one hand, Duke won, but on the other hand, Duke won by three when Gonzaga's best two players played pretty poor for their own standards. Especially on the defensive end, both of them kind of got exposed. I think catch them on a better night, Gonzaga's more likely to win this game. But on the same side of the coin, you have Bancaro, the best player on Duke, going out with cramps. If he doesn't go out with cramps, does he drop 40? Does he drop 20 in the second half like he did in the first? So you have to think about that stuff. I don't think there's a definitive answer. Of course, I don't think Gonzaga is going to lose many more games this season, and Duke probably won't either. But who's the easier team to beat from a third party perspective? Probably Duke. I think Gonzaga's the more well built team. I think Duke matches up against them pretty well, but I think Gonzaga beats pretty much every other team. Whereas I could see Duke losing to a different team. Another storyline is the Holmgren versus Bancaro storyline. Of course, those are two guys that are expected to be in the top three draft picks for this upcoming NBA draft. Who's going to be the number one pick? And I look at it like this. Who's the better player right now? The better basketball player is Paolo Bancaro. He's just better at basketball. Does this mean he's the better prospect than Holmgren? Probably not. He's more NBA ready right now. Whereas Holmgren is 7'1", fast, athletic, dribbles like a guard, can shoot the three, plays good defense, plays good help defense, should I say. I think Holmgren's the better prospect, and it just depends on what team drafts. Of course, it's going to be a team like the Rockets. Do they draft a Banchero or a Holmgren? I think they probably would draft a Holmgren because they already have kind of those scoring positions like KBJ and Jalen Green filled out. Where Banchero where would he slide? It's kind of odd, and they're not expecting to win anytime soon. So I'm not sure the Rockets would pick Banchero over Holmgren. But then you have a team like, let's say the Pistons fall. Would they pick Banchero? Maybe. But I think they would probably pick Holmgren too because of fit. Um, Overall, I think the better prospect is Holmgren. I think he's probably the more likely first overall pick for a team that's gonna suck, who's not looking to win right now. Now, whoever gets that second overall pick, let's say they're trying to win right now, or maybe even sort of trying to make the playoffs right now. Banchero would be huge for them. Um, Several other story. I mean, not several. The last storyline I kind of want to look at is other teams, right? How does this affect other teams, especially Kentucky, who I know the most about. Kentucky lost by 8 points to Duke. Duke just beat the best team in the nation by 3 points. That means technically, and this has no actual meaning. Let me get this pop up ad off my computer. No actual, there's no basis behind this other than I think it, you know, sounds funny. Gonzaga's only 5 points better according to that than Kentucky. So is Kentucky really the 10th best team in the country? Could Kentucky be a top five team? I think so. Um, Actually, I definitely think so. Um, but when you're looking at it from other, you got Purdue in there. I think most of the other teams are going to stay where they are. I think Gonzaga might drop to 2 or 3, and I don't think Duke jumps up to 1. Does this who jumps up to 1? Maybe Purdue. I'm not 100% sure how that plays out, but I think for the sake of other teams, we know Gonzaga's beatable now, and I'm pretty firm in the belief that Duke is definitely beatable. So we have no teams in college right now, in my opinion, that are unbeatable super teams anymore, and which is good for college basketball. And I think we're gonna do. I think Kentucky personally is gonna do fine this year. That test against Duke first game was a good test. We're playing cupcakes till the end of December, which is iffy, kind of scary. Wish we weren't playing such weak competition. We're going to end up playing a good team after playing a bunch of no good teams, and we're going to get beat. That's the Calipari method for you. But as of right now, Gonzaga is now. What was that sound? Gonzaga is no longer undefeated. Duke is still undefeated. Gonzaga will no longer be your best team in the country. I doubt Duke jumps all the way up to 1, but they'll probably be 2 or 3. Um, that's the video, I think. Make sure you like and subscribe, like I said earlier in the video. Make sure you check out 3 Wine Sports on every single social media under 3 Wine Sports. You can check out our 3 Wine Podcast, The 3 Wine Podcast, on the 3 Wine Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as here on YouTube, where we do that every single week. We dropped the Thanksgiving draft, if you want to check that out, where we did a snake draft of Thanksgiving food, items, and traditions. So thanks for watching the video. It is 1:40 in the morning, and I'm going to get some sleep.